Welcome everyone. Today we're going to discuss on AI and the future of democracy. We have our AI expert Annie, and she also has experience to work in tech industry. So how are you today? What's going on?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's holiday season here in the US, but yeah, I'm having a great time.
Okay, thank you. So as we are discussing about AI and the future of democracy, and you have a close relations with artificial intelligence and future of democracy. So how can democratic institution ensure transparency and accountability in AI-driven decision making, especially when algorithm influence public policy?
Absolutely, that is such an important, and it's just such an important issue right now. Maybe because we're kind of seeing a lot of polarization, a lot of volatility in the environment. So I think it's important that we take this outlook that AI in and by itself, it does not change much. What it does is amplify what we already have. And that is particularly important to keep in mind when we think about algorithms, training data, all of the different types of output that people see when they use AI, different types of AI. I think often we tend to forget that AI is trained by us, humans. So whatever we embed, the values and the thoughts and all of the biases that we might embed into the training data, that's what we're going to get back to us, sometimes in very strange configurations. Um, and so, what's going to become important then, more than ever, ever before, is that we do provide transparency. Transparency in the case of black box algorithms, because that's what AI look like today. Is like we have some data that is placed into like a vector space, and then it parses things together in different ways, and then it spits something out. So we call it a black box algorithm. And in order for us to be able to understand how did the AI we used, how did they come up with the conclusion that they did, we can we should demand some level of replicability, that it can actually cite the sources that it's using, so that we understand what was the line of thinking, what was it that what did the AI use in its thoughts, quote unquote, thought process to come to the conclusion that we are given. And so therefore, we tend to call that, transparency, and making sure that the data that we get is not just kind of out of like some kind of genie in the bottle. It actually has some kind of providence. So there are two particular issues that I like to uh, kind of bring in that I think could be potential obstacles in this. One happens downstream or upstream, and that it has to do with the training of the models themselves, whether that is the foundation models or the fine tunings of the foundation model. Most of the AI products, the large language models that people use, there's a lot of people in that loop. There's a lot of humans that are actually quality testing and making sure that the logic in that data material makes sense, and that at the very least we screen out dangerous concepts, we screen out recipes for making bombs or creating a new virus that could kill humanity. We have these kind of safeguards. We're going to have to amp up that quite a bit, but that's not enough, because there's another area too, and that happens at inference. So once the model is already trained, that's good, but then you have an out of the box type of LLM. Now you can still get a biased results. That's all the users. That's the user. And that's what we have words like prompt engineering. And that has to do with when you, at the point of inference, you ask a question to the LLM, it will gradually follow you, and it will anchor its answers based on what you believe. So you're going to automatically bake in those biases that you may have yourself. A lot of people are not aware of this, but they will actually get results that supports their initial supposition or hypothesis. And that's why we have prompt engineering. That's why we very often want to tell our large language model, I want you to be brutally honest. Don't try to flatter me. Don't try to give me, these type of things that I'm going to agree with. And that's also very much important. So there's like two gates here that people kind of need to keep in mind. And definitely the AI community has a huge responsibility here. And we need to make sure that both we educate people so they're aware of how these systems work, and that we also create, models that have good providence, good ground truth, that are well trained, and actually give the correct answers and don't give at least wrong answers.
Thank you. My next question for you, like, what safeguard are needed to prevent AI system for amplifying political misinformation, deepfakes, and election manipulation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually is a continuation of the last issue that we discussed. Um, so, providing traceability, provenance of the data that it has been trained on is always going to be incredibly important. Um, and so, I just listened to a interview with our AI godfather, Jeffrey Hinton, he's the one that I've been following for the past 10, 15 years, learning about AI. And he said something that really resonated with me. I'm not sure if I agree, but it resonated with me. We can't really use a discriminator model to evaluate a generator model in AI when it comes to trying to find out what is quote unquote fake, or like deep fakes, or artificially created content, content that does not resonate with reality, created like fake news, essentially misinformation, disinformation. His point is that if we have a generator model that created an output, and now we put a discriminator model to try to catch it, it's just going to train the generator model. So it becomes an arms race. That is actually, the predator to the transformer model that we have today was actually called GANs, and it stands for, it's exactly that. It's a generative model, the generative adversarial system that actually uses two different types of AIs that tries to undermine each other. Now, I do have some trust that we could still perhaps use some AI to help with that. But I think that's going to be agentic. That's going to have to be two very different separate systems where you basically have two tool calls to basically take two very different systems that have never interacted with each other before. I'm not exactly sure what that would look like. So again, I really think it goes back to provenance, and I think it goes back to being able to trace the data, being able to prove. I tend to want to use one little trick, and it's very basic. It's very simple. It's something that I hope more people are doing. If somebody sends you a picture and you kind of you kind of think that, yeah, I'm not sure if I believe this, copy it, and then use Google Lens or some sort of, or actually you could just load it up to Google Lens, and then now you can set the time, like what do you call it? You want to kind of figure out when was this picture first entering the internet, so you can have a cutoff at maybe 2022. We didn't really have these type of models before 2022. If you see that picture before 2022, you already know that it's not fake. Obviously, that's just a stopgap solution. It's not going to help us very much longer, but that is one way to say that at least this picture existed before we had AI creating images. Again, I think we're going to have to use a lot of watermarks. We're going to have to use traceability, but it's definitely an uphill battle, and I really don't have the answer. Yeah, that's going to be one of those areas that we're really going to have to dig into in the next few years.
Mhm, very interesting. Like, how can AI be used to strengthen civic engagement and participatory democracy without creating new form of digital inequality?
Yes. Oh gosh, I'm so glad you're asking that, because that is the problem with AI. It's such a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it enables so much information to reach out to most people. Because if you have a cell phone and you have an internet connection, you can get access to AI. It's not harder than getting access to a search engine. So when it comes to accessibility, like the actual technological accessibility, it's in the hands of almost everyone. Now, the education around how to use it might not be that accessible, and that's the danger here. It's the problem is really more that people may not know exactly how to use it, and that's where we're going to see the inequality. That's where we're going to see, like, the things that we've already discussed. That's where the inequality is going to show up, is that some people know how to prompt engineer, they know how to really find the information that they need, they know how not to be fooled by their own imaginations that are being prompting an AI that may be very happy to just confirm all sorts of belief that may not be grounded. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest issue: education, and that's going to be human education. And again, that's why it's so important we have a lot of humans in the loop, and governance, AI governance, and I really can't stress that enough. I know that the there's a common tendency right now to think that if we govern, if we regulate AI on the front end, we're going to stop innovation. And I think it's very, very important that we understand that if we let the genie out of the bottle without any sort of guardrails, we might not be able to put it back. So we really need to have that. And that has to do with education. We need to teach people how to ask the good questions, prompt their systems the best way. And if we can do that, then we can actually see the net positive sides of AI instead of the net negative.
Mhm, mhm. Excellent. My next question for you, like, should government regulate the development and use of AI in political campaign? And if so, what ethical boundaries must be enforced?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think one rule we should have is no synthetic impersonation, sort of no micro targeted impersonation. I think we should have some level of standard that the message needs to be authentic. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but as long as we can get the guardrails and the quality controls, um, we might be able to control that, and making sure that people are not trying to fool. And again, I know that's a very uphill battle. I don't really have a lot of answers, and I think that that's the $1 million question, or the $1 million answer is we really know how to regulate it. Um, I think that campaigns should log their AI use the way that they log donations, for example. That could help. Um, a small ranking and routing tweaks can shift some exposure, because we need to put at least some of the smaller guardrails. This is not going to solve everything, but we can put some level of quality controls and put humans into it. And again, it goes back to source checking and critical thinking. I mean, that I think it kind of goes with it, is that no amount of, sources or ground truth or ontology or traceability is going to matter if people tend to want to believe what they want to believe. And if they're not willing to accept what is the real objective reality on the ground, we're not going to get any further regardless. But that is going to be where the battle is being fought, I think.
Thank you. My next question for you: how can democracy balance innovations and national security concern while protecting individual privacy and human rights in an AI powered world?
So we need to balance two things here. We need to keep national security, cybersecurity, and this is more important than ever. We are using these AI systems as if it's our closest confidants. You can only imagine if people could hack into these systems and misuse that information. If we use the personal identifiable information in different varieties, there's so many reasons to put up a lot of security around it. Also, if we emphasize security, especially in the context of national security, too much, it could become a surveillance loophole. So it could actually backfire, where we want to protect people's privacy using putting up cybersecurity guardrails could backfire in the wrong type of context, where we putting up all these systems because we want to protect you. So that is a problem. So that's a balance that we need to strike, and I'm not really sure exactly how we do that. And it's going to be different from culture to culture and nation to nation. So oversight must be independent, and I think that the data minimization should be a default. And what I mean by that is that we should not collect more data than we actually need. I'm actually kind of going back a little bit on what I said a few years ago before the Transformers, because I felt the more data we have, the better it is. We can get more accurate conclusions in our analysis. And I'm starting to walk a little bit back on that. And that is because if there is a data leak, if we have private data leaking into bad actors, the consequences are so dire at this point, because we've come so far with these systems. So I think good hygiene is to make sure that we never have or collect or store or keep more data than we actually really need. And I think that's going to be more and more important going forward. And then human rights frameworks just need to be embedded like any other safety risk. We have to consider human rights. There's so many layers that need to be considered. And again, we can't do this without governance. We can't do this without policy. I think, again, to kind of go back to the point that I mentioned, some people think that having governance on the front end is going to stifle innovation. I actually think it's going to be the opposite, because once you have those guardrails, you're free. I want to kind of harken back a little bit back to GDPR, because I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the reasons that GDPR came to the effect that it did, about 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit less, was precisely because there was such a data collection of people's search history and what they did in social media, etc. And the European Union became concerned that people should have the right to be forgotten. And we were almost moved away from that now. But you could almost question, how are you going to be forgotten in a system that has logged absolutely everything about you? So it's much, much harder to walk back. So if you've created a system, you've innovated a system around lax policies, all of a sudden, on the back end, you get all of these new policies. Now you might actually go bankrupt because you didn't plan for that. So I think for the long term, sustainable innovation, I really think we need to address these issues front and center.
Thank you. How can democracy ensure algorithmic transparency without compromising national security and commercial confidentiality?
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. I'm not really sure if I have the answer. So it's going to be a collaboration between the tech companies and the governments. I don't think regulating the algorithm is not really a problem here. It's more the data. It's like, how is the data used? Like, who owns the data? Who has access to the data? Who can use the data? I think that is maybe more the national security, and I also think that it's more in the realm of cybersecurity. So how you optimize an algorithm is more at least in my world, because I come from a more like a consumer tech world, that has more to do with how can we sell more products to a user? Like, how can we make sure that, how can we get more eyeballs, right? So when it comes to security and algorithmic security, maybe it's because I just simply don't know, but I don't really have the answer.
I understand. Thank you for your response. My next question: will generative AI accelerate political polarizations, and can it be redesigned to foster constructive public dialogue and deliberations, or anything else you have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we had a conversation a few weeks ago, I mentioned what I call Socratic use of generative AI. And that is when you're utilizing, for example, a large language model based on curiosity. Like you don't want to generate something to convince other people about anything, but you're using it, you're prompting your LLM because you want to learn something, you're curious, you want to learn something more about a topic. This is so much more powerful than, for example, when some of us grew up and the best thing you had was an encyclopedia, and if you were lucky, that particular thing you were looking up took 20 minutes to find out, and then it was like one paragraph and that was dated, right? So whether you're using Google, and so you can actually use LLMs as a, you know Google on steroid, or like a search engine on steroid, and it can really kind of help you get the answer that you want, and you can prompt it in a way that you get different sides of the issue, and so it could absolutely really help you. um and when it's used for that, it's really helping democracy because it's educational. But obviously it can also be used to create deep fakes, it can be used to persuade people in a negative way. So this is definitely is a balancing act, and it has. I really think it comes down to public education, and for people to understand how to use these tools and how to use them to educate themselves.
Mhm, mhm. Excellent. Another important things I want to say in democracy, women empowerment, and how AI can be helpful for women empowerment and women politicians, those who want to get into the politics. Right now, I'm in Bangladesh. Even in Bangladesh, they think women politicians like they need to improve their leaderships and other things. What's your thoughts?
Yes. Oh, that's super interesting. I think every new technology poses an opportunity to people who have been underrepresented. We could definitely use it in nefarious ways, but a lot of times there's like a bottom up situation where actually you see people who have not have had access to power or communication channels, or not really been listened to, and they've never had like that soapbox that they can step up on. Now they have it because now they have access to technology. So all new technologies tend to have these equalizer type of effects, and that's super exciting to hear that women in Bangladesh are now being more empowered by AI, and that's where we need to go, and that's why I'm excited about the future of AI, and I really hope that that's going to continue. That is the trend that we're going to see more of.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Excellent. Uh, I want to learn more. Definitely, I will share with the political parties. How should democratic institutions regulate AI-driven surveillance to balance public safety with civil liberties?
Oh, great question. We actually just came out of one of those situations here in Austin, Texas. I'm part of a group that's called EFF Austin, is Electronic Frontier Foundation, and it's the local chapter here. One of the big cases that we were fighting at the moment was the placement of cameras, license plate cameras, and this was to the so the intent is innocuous. It's that the police enforcement or law enforcement can have an opportunity to catch crimes, etc. So they can capture license plates, etc. The problem was that it's a huge surveillance problem. It becomes an issue where people are being tracked, and there are use of data, or there's storage of data and potential use of data where it was not intended. And this is one of the reasons that I'm kind of going back a little bit on my initial sort of Pollyanna-ish understanding about data. I think this is for us. This was kind of like a beacon of what to come potentially. Now, we were able to stop it. So EFF Austin was actually able to stop this. So in Austin, you can't have these cameras put up, but the many cities that have those. And I think that this is something that we're going to fight more and more of in the future. And the problem isn't the data itself, and the problem isn't the surveillance itself, or the law enforcement situation and the very legitimate cases where that is important. The problem arises when you have when that data is being used in a way that it was not intended, and that's when the wrong people are kind of getting access to it and can kind of create a reason to use it. So yeah, so it's definitely something we need to keep our eye on.
Thank you. Dave, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fine, but I expected to watch, not participate.
No
So,
problem. No problem. You can join with us as a participant. No problem.
but I just got here, so I don't know what's been discussed so far.
Yeah. Annie, you can give a summary as he's our fellow and just.
Hi, Dave. Nice to meet you. We were having a fantastic conversation. You know, Sharif, he's a master in asking great questions, and I, again, you know, I think it really goes to the core of what we're discussing. It's like, what's the good use of AI and what is not the good use of AI, and I always come back to that. It's being able to ask good questions, because we have an oracle, right? I mean, we have like this AI. It's just an oracle, and we can decide what we want to do with it. We can ask good questions, or we can make it do nefarious things, and the choice is ours.
Yeah.
And so, like, and that's why I love these conversations and these discussions. That's why I like coming back here, because this is really, you know, that's the issue. So we're talking about democracy and AI, and whether AI is a good thing for democracy or a bad thing for a democracy. And the way I look at it, technology is technology, and it has upsides and it has downsides. And the way that we have kind of contemplated for the past, I don't know how many minutes, but I think it's kind of like trying to understand like more of the upsides of it.
Yeah, I think the upside is going to, in the long term, outweigh the downside. But we've got to get our feet wet, and we have to get adjusted to it, and we have to learn how to police it.
Yes.
And I think that those are really the steps that we have to take. I've done a lot with AI personally because I'm an author. So I asked AI to write me songs. Oh my goodness, they're wonderful songs. There are going to be so many songwriters out of business. And then I asked the AI to play me those songs, and it fully orchestrated those songs. Yeah. And the tempo changed, and the rhythms changed, and the voices were marvelous. So there are going to be a lot of artists who are going to be either out of work, or they're going to have to find another way to use AI themselves. I was being helped this semester by a group of students from the University of Central Florida, and I asked them to go to AI and create cartoon images for me. And one of the students said, "I'm a cartoonist." And I said, "Oh, that's great." And so all of the other students went and created AI cartoon images for me. They were beautiful. They were so much fun. There were little jokes in there that I never anticipated. But the student who said, "I am a cartoonist," he drew me some cartoons that were nowhere near the quality of the AI cartoons. So we've got quite a competitor there. the songs that we've written, the lyrics of those songs are so fabulous. And all I have to do is give it a few hints, and the lyrics are just marvelous. So I'm really a fan of using AI to create creative things. But I know that they're out there in the world are people who are going to use AI for nefarious purposes. So
Yeah.
I'm of two minds here, and I'm sure the whole world is of two minds with regard to AI. We love it now, but eventually we may end up not loving it. I wouldn't say hating it, not loving it.
Any you want to add any points for Dave discussions as he is working with family and educations? So how AI going to create an impact on educations and family?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I go back to asking good questions. Like one of the things that AI still hasn't done for me, and I love AI. I use AI myself all the time. But one thing that it hasn't done for me is suddenly engaging me in a conversation, asking me something that I've never thought about before. Never done that. And this is why I think that I believe absolutely that it's going to create so much nice art, so much good music. But here's the thing. One of the things, and this is maybe more a question than it is a statement, because I might be wrong here, and at least in the future I might be wrong. The AI we have today is pattern recognition. It's looking in the rearview mirror. It looks at what has been done in the past. It doesn't really look at what's going to happen in the future. And almost any innovation, any sort of like good question, good thought, good new idea, it starts with something like somebody has a hunger for something. Somebody has like this vexing, idea or something. There's like a pain point. And I always go back to that. As humans, we are driven by something that AI is not driven by. We get hungry. We need to sleep. We have like all of these different drivers that are outside of just like intellectual reasoning and pattern recognition. And a lot of times that is what's at the bottom. That's where you have that first seed of creativity, is that you have something that somebody else haven't thought about before. And AI is going to lay dormant until you wake it up. So I think both for education, for families, for the arts, I wonder if it's like, yeah, it's going to perfect everything we do, but I'm not so sure yet that it's actually going to replace us in creating the next new thing. But I'd be curious to hear what you guys think
The
about that.
number one country music song is an AI song right now in the U.S. and,
Yes.
and singer is an AI singer, and it's
Yeah,
in
I heard it.
the U.S. So there's just so much potential there, and the things that it comes up with for me are just marvelous little jokes I wouldn't think of myself. Here's a special use of AI. My uh, eldest son is 57 years old. He's bedbound. He's been ill his whole life. He's got cerebral palsy, and his method. He's very smart. His method of communication is when he wants to say no, he goes, and when he wants to say yes, he goes, and when he wants to say I don't know, he goes. Well, my younger son, who's 20 years junior to my elder, uh, and he have worked out a way to put my older son on AI and have him communicate with ChatGPT with only those clicks. And what they loaded in were the characters that Davy, my elder, wants to have in his stories. So they load a whole bunch of old TV characters, Leave It to Beaver and uh, Jack Benny and George Burns and Gracie Allen and Annette Funicello, who he has a crush on, and lots of old TV characters and singers. They loaded them in, and then they told AI to write stories with Davy's, um, I guess, obsessions in the stories. Well, Davy is obsessed with baseball and the circus. And so we've got Jack Benny and George Burns and Gracie Allen going to the circus. And then Jack Benny volunteers to go up on stage. I mean, we didn't think of this. AI thought it up. And AI writes these charming little stories that just knock your socks off. And now what we have to do, it's kind of an obligation, is we have to video all of that and get it out there in the disabled community or the otherwise able community, so that other people like my son who are disabled can use this same system. Well, AI has a lot of patience. And so it can sit there and transcribe his click talk forever, whereas most of us get very bored of it after a little while, and we go, "Okay, Davey, I'm going to go get something to eat, or I'm going to go do something." No, AI sticks with him, so I appreciate AI for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I want to go for some other discussions on how can democratic ensure algorithm transparency without compromising national security and commerce confidentiality. I think you already discussed this matter. So will generative AI accelerate political polarizations? These things you also discussed. So, Dave, you want to add any point for these two questions?
Well, everything is going to accelerate political polarization now, because it seems that there are two camps. There's the I don't want to know anything, science is bullshit camp, and there's the I want to know everything, science is my God camp. And there's not much in between. And so those of us who are scientific minded are very excited about things like what's happening this week at COP30 in Brazil about the climate. Then there are other people who don't even know that it's happening. And if they knew it was happening, they would just say, "Oh, it's BS." So it's very difficult to extract ourselves from this wonderful helper. So my feeling is that AI is going to continue to pull us apart in the sense that some people are going to be paying attention to AI and learning, and some people are not going to be paying any attention to AI, and they're going to be like troglodytes. I hate to say it, but we're really creating a class of the AI learned and the AI skeptic. And I think that we've got to come to some common ground on AI and be willing to bring the skeptics on board and say, "Okay, here it is," and gently introduce them to AI, just as we gently have introduced them to everything else. They take a lot more. It takes a lot more patience to bring somebody like that into something new and technological than it does somebody who's on the leading edge of science all the time. So it's going to be a real divider. There's going to be those who are AI literate and those who are not AI literate. And the illiterate look at an AI graphic on Facebook and go, "Oh, wow, that's what did that guy just do?" And they think that it's real. And so it's really tough, because we're going to have to learn to distinguish between what's fake and what's real, because there's an awful lot of fake out there now, and more and more and more every day. I mean, we used to be amazed at a graphic that we would see that was pretty simple, but now they're incredibly complex, and they're overwhelmingly realistic. And I think that that's going to become a problem for people who don't know how to discern the difference between reality and AI. We got a learning curve here.
Excellent. Any like I just want to focus this question because this is very important for the democratic institutions. Even though country like Bangladesh or emerging economy, we need to improve the democratic institution regulations. And my question: how should democratic institutions regulate AI-driven surveillance to balance public safety with civil liberties? On the other hand, how AI can help political parties to develop as a institutions or share the knowledge and wisdom and can grow together. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I think it's a million dollar question, right? It's like how do we balance it? And obviously, this was probably a question that we've met or had to deal with at every technological turn in many ways. And also the, the digital last digital revolution back in, I guess, the .com era. um, and of course, there's nothing compared to what we have now. We are absolutely completely different juncture in history, and how what we do now is going to lay the guardrails. It's going to have a huge significance on how we move forward. Like if you talk about, for example, what we used to call AI only 8 years ago, it was what we call discriminative models, where typically structured data. It wasn't like the type of vector space models that we're using today. They're typically text based. Even then, all it took was you could have somebody's zip code, their social security number, their first name. That would be enough, and you could figure out who that person is very, very quickly. It was very easy to figure out, and we still have those systems. Now, people are sharing a lot more information into their large language models. So if you can imagine, like if a lot of large language models, like chat models, chat bots, are being superimposed on a lot of different systems, maybe even government systems, and people start conversing, all of a sudden you get a much more richer canvas. And if you want to use that data in a different way, now you have narratives. You have so much more than just what we call PII, which is like personally identifiable information. It becomes very, very easy to surveil people if we want to. That's going to be like the gift that keeps on giving. And so the only thing that is going to stop us is actually going to be the values that we have and what we decide to do at the front end. And if we decide to put those guardrails in place, and we decide as a society that we want to share this, we don't want to share that. We want to give permissions to this, but we don't want to give permissions to that, because this is going to be a completely different playing field than what we've ever seen in the past. So that's the future we're going into. And we have to make those decisions now as a society and as voters and as citizens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. Dev, what's your response on these questions or on this argument and discussion?
Well, yeah, I think security and surveillance are really scary. That we're going to be in a position where if the wrong parties own the tools, that they can really surveil us wherever we are, and they can create detriments to our security. And I think that's going to be an issue that is going to be paramount over the next few decades. I was amazed at the way my computer knew who I was. I'm so identifiable. And I put on my glasses, it still knows who I am. I take off my glasses, it still knows who I am. I just have to keep both eyes open. I think it's looking at the eye. But I got a new computer, and it said right away, do you want to use uh, AI to open your computer, or would you like to put in a password? And I said, oh, I'll use AI. And they went, good. Now we know who you are. and and I open up the computer and it says hello to me and it knows who I am. Somebody else opens up the computer, they say, go get Dave and let him open the computer. You're not the right person. So I think this facial recognition and uh, surveillance are going to be really the biggest battle we're going to have to fight in the short term. I understand in some countries like China uh, that they know where you are all the time because they have your cell phone uh, on on their computer, and they also have your face. And you go into the wrong place, and you try to buy the wrong thing, and you put your credit card or your payment card, credit card, into the slot, and it refuses it because it doesn't want you to buy that thing. Well, who's the it? It's the government, governance. So I think what this is teaching us is that we've really, really, really got to keep our democracy. That if we let those democracies go, that we're going to end up enslaving ourselves. So to me, I think this personally identifiable information is really important, and there's got to be a way that we can feel secure about the fact that it is so easy for the system now to grab that information to identify us and know where we are and who we are communicating with, etc. So it's pretty scary. I'm 84 years old, so for me it's not as scary as it would be if I were a lot younger. But at the age of 84, I'm happy to be not having to deal with this for more than maybe another decade or so.
Thank you. I want to discuss about trust, which is very important. Can AI help restore trust in democratic process, such as election, governance, public service, or will it depend public skepticism or what's your thoughts? How we can create trust through this AI and this democratic process?
I think
And
theoretically it can. I don't think it does. So, and again, it's because it's a technology that can go in so many different ways. And I think if we know what we're doing now, so that we build up those guardrails and we kind of create those systems in place now at the front end, I definitely think that it can happen. But I don't think that people have trust in it. I think people have less trust um, on the aggregate level anyway. Like I think when it comes to there are certain things that you, and again, providence, traceability, ground truth, like all of those kind of those hard baked ontologies that you can trace behind the system, that's going to generate trust. But if it's if you just have a black box and you don't know why it ended up with what it ended up with, then people typically don't have a lot of trust.
thank you. Dev, what you want to discuss about trust?
Uh, I think we've got to really pay attention to our politics now. We've, in this country, in the U.S., we've made the mistake of electing people who are not trustworthy. And I say it's time to go back to a time when we really trusted our government, and the trust level in governance has decreased tremendously. I don't know the data, but I know that people used to trust their government and now they don't. And I think that we've got to get to the point where you cannot be a charlatan or a bamboozler and become a leader. that we have to somehow weed all that out and go back to the old boring days when it wasn't a famous TV person running the country. It was just a guy who was really good at, or a woman, really good at organizing things and getting things done, and 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 honest to the core. Unfortunately, this country has slipped this last decade, and really we are in a position we never thought we'd be in with regard to leadership. So if we don't trust our leaders, we certainly aren't going to trust AI. Uh, and so we've got to get around to the point where we, again, believe in our government and believe in the people who we elected. Uh, and so I think we have to discuss this very issue with our fellow Americans in a public forum, that uh, we have the issue that our uh, trust has lessened and our skepticism has gone up, and we have to get back in balance, and that's a very difficult thing to do. It's a once bitten, twice cautious uh, sort of an approach, and we really have been bitten, and we really are cautious. So we've got to find people who we can trust. It's really difficult in this day and age because of the media and the fact that the largest media companies in this country are owned and manipulated by the richest people, uh, and and so the most wealthy are also the most in control of the information flow, and then they have the ability to silence people who they don't agree with, and that's a scary proposition. This whole idea in this country that corporations are people has got to be reversed. The Citizens United vote was that gave every corporation the same rights that an individual person, and that a corporation could therefore put as much money as it wanted behind a candidate and uh, promote them and speak about them. Uh, and so huge amount of money entered politics that weren't there before. So we've got to get that reversed, or we're going to uh, living at the bidding the under the control of this very small group of extremely wealthy men. Uh, and uh, our biggest mistake is that we haven't uh, democratized really in this country. We started out with an idea from a group of men in the 1700s who said all men are created equal. That didn't include Native Americans. It didn't include enslaved uh, Americans, and it didn't include, in fact, the enslaved were not even considered Americans, but it didn't include women. And you know that there are still people who are uh, who think that way. Here it is, 250 years later, and we're having to battle that same issue. And I think that until we get the politics straight and get money to politics and get the powerful to go back to business and get off of our democracy, get their thumbs off of our democracy, I think we're going to have a problem. So that's the way I look at it. I think that the main thing we've got to do is get uh, trust in our government in order to be able to trust AI.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Annie, like my last question, what new rights should citizen have in an AI-driven society? And what's your closing remarks for today?
Wow.
I think, yeah, I think that question answered itself. I agree 100%. Human explanation, right to opt out, just like, this right to be forgotten, like the GDPR. And yeah, digital representation. That's very interesting. Yeah. I actually do think that AI used correctly could cut through a lot of redundant layers of what we have now. I mean, we have an electoral college. The justification for having that anymore is just like, again, just to kind of go back to, you know, at this point in time, we have a communication system and decision making algorithms, yeah, uh, which can be empowered by AI, which can actually put the regular person closer to power. So we are actually closer than ever to a real democracy, like really, truly, almost direct democracy. I mean, technically, we could do that. But whether that's a good idea, I'm not going to weigh in on. But I definitely think that, yes, I do think it starts with education, though. And I think that with any new technology, we need to make sure that people know how to use it so that they don't misuse it and so that they're not misused by it. And I think once we have that in place, we should be able to leapfrog into a future where AI is really going to be our liberating force that is actually going to put the regular person, and again, be that equalizer where women, people of different groups, all have a place at the table and have more direct access to power than they have today. And I think it's possible. I still believe in that. We just have to treat it. But again, it's going to require that we have a certain say, that we have some sort of say over how these systems are going to interact with us.
Well, my closing thought is that change trickle down from the top. That it doesn't matter what happens with government. It doesn't matter what happens with industry. Change bubbles up from the bottom, and we have got we've got to get into the schools. That's why I work in education. We've got to work with the kids and the parents. We've got
Mm.
to be together. We should be having like scout troops uh, and family gatherings at schools once a month where everybody comes together and we talk about what's the future going to look like for our kids and how can we ensure that our children have a bright future. So my hope is that we'll be able to create bubbles of change at the household level that will then rise up through society and create the change to take place instead of having posed from the top by people who don't have a clue of what the local problem or what individuals might need, want, or care about. Instead, uh, it, it's all the thing that they thought of this morning. They took a shower, then they want to impose that on the rest of the world. Uh, that's a problem. So,
Mm.
bubble up beats trickle down is the theme of my life.
Thank you. This is very interesting discussions, and thank you, Michael, for your comments and everything. I request you can join our World Talent Economic Forum institution discussions. Thank you, Dave, for your continuous support for World Talent Economic Forum. Soon, we are launching your book in Bangladesh, and beside that, Annie, thank you for your uh, excellent contribution for World Talent Economic Forum. And I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible with the government agency, corporation, and academia. Thank you. Bye bye, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good